This presentation, titled ISO 45001-2018, the first international standard for safety management systems, comes to us from David Solomon. David has worked in the building and construction industries for more than 31 years. He's a fellow and dual international ISQEM Safety Award distinction recipient in 2015 and 2016 for his commitment and involvement in developing a positive safety culture in the building and construction industries. He is recognized as a standards expert who is Standard Australia's chairman of Occupational Health and Safety Management Committee, Standards Australia's ISO 45001 International Head of Delegation, and the Asia-Oceania representative for Australia. David is a director on the board of the Crane Council of Australia, as well as an exemplar Global Certified Management System Specialist Lead, a Master OH&S Auditor, and their ISO 45001 Exam and Scheme Chairman. He is also the chairman of PricewaterhouseCoopers External Advisory Board. David regularly reviews documentation for Australian state and national government departments, including auditing, safety, and transport for relevance, corporate governance, and compliance. And with that, take it away, David.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for the introduction, and thank you, Exemplar Global, for the opportunity. Today, I want to talk about 45001 and just trying to make it a bit more simpler to understand, as it's the first standard internationally for occupational health and safety management systems. What I wanted to cover first was clauses 1 to 3 of the standard, because they set out its scope and the application. And they talk about the normative references and the terms and definitions. So clause 1 is the scope, clause 2 is normative references, and in 45001, because it's the first standard in the suite of this series, it doesn't have any. And clause 3 is terms and definitions. And it's good for the user to know that they're arranged in a conceptual order. By that, I mean they are not arranged in an alphabetical order, but they're arranged in the order of the concept. To give you some dates and milestones of 45001, on March the 12th in 2018, the standard ISO 45001 was published in the UK. In October 17th, 2018, Standards Australia, the committee responsible for safety management systems, decided to adopt 45001 after broad stakeholder consultation. Obviously, this has been adopted by other countries around the world on different dates as well. As I'm representing Australia, this is Australian-centric, the content. On November the 14th, 2018, the same national committee decided to withdraw the existing standard, 4801, which was based on the content not reflecting contemporary safety, as it was 19 years old. On January the 30th, in 2019, the same safety committee decided to change its status from withdrawn to superseded or available superseded status, as 4801 is cited in the regulation and needs to be available indefinitely. JASANS, the Joint Accreditation System of Australia and New Zealand, known as JASANS, is in the process of reviewing the OH&S auditor competencies for currency in relation to 45001, and will most likely commence in the migration transition period of 3 years or thereafter. I wanted to discuss what clauses really matter. Now, while I've covered the first 3, it's really from clause 4 where the business end starts to kick in for an international standard management system standard. So clause 4 is the context of the organisation. Clause 5 is leadership and worker participation. Clause 6, planning. Clause 7, support. Clause 8, operations. Clause 9, performance evaluation. And clause 10, improvement. Why are clauses 4 to 10 so special? Clauses 4 to 10 contain the requirements to be met during the implementation of the OH&S management system during its conformity assessment. Clause 4 sets the context for the OH&S MS, the management system itself, and it constraints the internal and the external issues and the requirements of interested parties. Clause 5 defines the leadership engine, which drives the plan, do, check, act cycle embodied in the framework of the standard. Also wanted to add, in most management system standards for ISO, the PDCA cycle is relevant in each one. Clause 6 to 10 follow the Plan, Do, Act cycle, Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. The relationship can be seen as follows. And you'll see here in the planning in clause 6, the do in clause 7 and 8, and the check in 9. And the act for improvement is in clause 10. What 45,001 has done is actually put the clause numbers in each of those steps, whereas management system standards prior to this didn't have the clause numbers. So it's made it a bit easier to follow. I wanted to just discuss some standard wording that ISO use throughout their documents, and that is shall, should, may, and can. And this has been adopted in 45,001 as with other management system standards. And in the standard, the following terms are used. Shall indicates a requirement, should indicates a recommendation, may indicates permission, and can indicates a possibility or a capability. Note that A is mandatory, while B, C, and D are optional at the discretion of the user. What I'm going to discuss now is the gap between the superseded Australian New Zealand standard and the new standard for Occupational Health and Safety Management Systems 45,001. This is not dissimilar to the new subject matter addressed in 45,001 that is not included in other international standards, which is Z10 for the US, is Z1000 for Canada, 18,001 for OHSAS for the UK, and they're listed below. The topics covered are in 45,001, which aren't covered in 4801, and other international standards that have been superseded include continual improvement, leadership and participation, safety and design, evaluation of compliance, legal requirements and other requirements, actions to address risks and opportunities, improvement, operation, outsourcing, and procurement. All of those topics and subject matters or headings were not addressed in the old standards. And that's just an indication of how far safety has evolved and gives more rise to why we needed an international standard that encompasses the evolution of safety. The gap between 4801 and 45,001 continued. ISO 45,001 follows the same high-level structure as numerous other international management system standards do, which I mentioned earlier, and they include 9,001 for quality, 14,001 for environment, and 27,001 for information security, all of which have the same 10 short clause numbers and headings. These make it much easier to integrate two or more disciplines into one document because they all have the same high-level structure. (45,001) follows the same high-level structure as numerous other international standards. Moreover, 45,001 has been designed for organisations to integrate it as part of their overall business management plan. It's actually a requirement of 45,001 to integrate it to your overall business management plan, rather than it being considered a standalone system. 45,001 has been designed to involve and be used by all levels of management in its own right, adopting the ISO high-level structure for ease of further integration, as I discussed earlier. The heading of the annex, which is informative, guidance on the use of this document. Under that heading, it has A1 in the annex A.1 in general. The explanatory information given in this annex is intended to prevent misinterpretation of the requirements contained in this document. In March 2019, the ISO Technical Management Board Group and Joint Technical Coordination Group decided to change the name of Annex SL and refer to it as a high-level structure or high-level structure with a view to encourage management system integration. Subsequently, Since then, it's gone back to Annex L, and again, now in 2020, it's gone back to Annex SL. So it's gone done the full circle, but it took an international review of the Annex to get to where we are today. I wanted to discuss quickly the clauses in 45,001. Now, while they're sequentially written in the standard, I actually give them, from my professional opinion and the implementation of 45,001, I give them a different weighting, as in what are the most important things you need to address. So in clause 4, I think it's the most important clause of the entire standard, and that's the context of the organisation. If you don't know what your business is doing or trying to achieve, well, you shouldn't be going to the next step. The next step, in my opinion, is planning. I think planning is crucial once you know what your business is doing. The next clause is 8, operation. How are you actually going to roll it out? How are you going to implement that standard in the workplace? And then if you are rolling out a standard in the workplace, you need to know if it's effective. You need to know if it's working. So that comes under clause 9, performance evaluation. If it's going to be effective, you'll need to have worker participation and some leadership throughout the business to make sure the workers are doing things in a safe manner. If that's all working well, you need to support that leadership and worker involvement. So then it naturally goes on to continual improvement, which is clause 10, improvement. And with improvement, you can eradicate things that weren't working as well as they might, or you can do a little better. And then if we remember back in the beginning of this presentation, we talked about the other 3 clauses, and I would prioritise them in the order of 3 for definitions. 1, scope, as in how far your management system is going to cater for your business, how wide and the breadth of what you're going to incorporate in the scope. And 2, well, there aren't any normative references in this standard because it's the first of the series. I just want to make a few notes in relation to Australia. SafeWork New South Wales, which is a regulator in one of the states in Australia, has indicated they now recognise the following schemes. And there are 3 different schemes in Australia, which all have a sort of equal weighting. They're all equivalent to meet the requirements of a Class A asbestos removal licence, which was part of a requirement to have a management system that complied with the old standard, 4801. Under the current new WHS legislation, which in Australia we call W, which is Work Health and Safety, as opposed to OHS, Occupational Health and Safety, a safety management system is referred to as a certified safety management system. This reference can only be found under the legislative definitions, where it clearly states that a certified safety management system or equivalent, which opens the door to a positive byproduct. The positive byproduct is SafeWork New South Wales actions. It now permits a contractor to apply for state or government work over $1 million and not to be restricted as being 4801 certified. The reason I put this last note in the presentation is because at the local level, wherever you are in the world, all the government organisations are starting to recognise the benefits of 45,001, and it'll take a slight while or process to go through superseding your old standard and migrating and the transition to the full adoption of 45,001. I'd like to thank Exemplar Global and Mike for the opportunity to provide this information this year. Thank you very much.
Well, and thank you, David Solomon, for that look at auditing ISO 45001. And that concludes this presentation.